This particular segment is basically an exposure segment. It exposes the Democratic Party for what they are. They are a bunch of users that feel that there should be no accountability. Facts show that the most loyal contingency to the Democratic Party are people of color, and in particular, Black America. Now, in the last two elections, obviously with Barack Obama running, the amount of black vote for Barack Obama was substantial and of greater numbers than in previous elections. And let's just call it the way it is. A lot of black people got out there to vote because a black man was running for president. I fully acknowledge that. But in the off-year elections, the amount of the black vote declined substantially. Why is that? There were a lot of potential Democratic nominees for various positions in Congress, in the Senate, the House of Representatives, governor races, state elected official races, etc., that could have benefited from a higher, let's just say high, not even higher, high black voter turnout. But that didn't happen. The question that I believe is going to be answered in this segment is, why didn't it happen? The Democratic Party and the various campaign organizations do not invest in black voter turnout. They basically take the black vote for granted. And because they do this, black voters are only empowered by their own self-will to get out there and vote. There are various organizations throughout the country that have a specific job of voter mobilization, i.e. black voter mobilization. But they, as in anything else, need money in order to get that particular job done. In this segment, you're going to see that the Democratic Party has basically allocated little to nothing to help these organizations to get those votes out. Now, I'm also very interested to see, and I'm going to have to do my own research on this because this show is not going to delve into this particular section. What kind of money are they going to spend to get the Hispanic vote out? The Hispanic vote, obviously, is one of the fastest growing segments of voters in the country, and in particular, the Democratic Party. Now, they're not the most reliable segment of the Democratic vote, but they are the fastest growing segment of that vote. Anyway, here is Roland Martin and his panel discussing the lack of financial involvement that the Democratic Party has as far as dealing with and mining the black vote?
The Democratic Party, you cannot win a presidential race unless you have black people. We know that as a fact. 2008, 2012, black women voted at a higher rate than any other group in America. That's right, higher than white men, white women, Hispanic men, Hispanic women. We know in battleground states, Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, Virginia, and several others, the black vote is critical. So the question is, how is it that Democrats who ain't black, how is it they continue to ignore black voters when it comes to the money? That's right. In a piece in The Nation magazine, Steve Phillips writes that the Democratic Party and its various constituencies, DNC, DSCC, DCCC, Democratic Governors Association, and others, do not have specific plans of action to target black grassroots organizations. The question is, how is it that they want to continue to have black folks as political sharecroppers? That is, mining the land, tilling the field, but not wanting to pay. Joining us right now is Steve Phillips via Skype from San Francisco. Also, he's a national political leader, senior fellow at the Center for American Progress, and author of the New York Times bestseller, Brown is the New White, How a Demographic Revolution Has Created a New American Majority. Also in the studio, Cornell Belcher, President, National Pollster, Brilliant Corners Research and Strategy. So Steve, so you wrote this piece. What's been the reaction from Democrats?
Well, people weren't happy, obviously, and that a lot of folks are saying that, well, they are trying to make these types of changes and they're part of their plans and they haven't rolled them out yet. But the fact of the matter is that people have publicly announced, this is on the independent side, independent expenditure committees and outside groups, et cetera, that $225 million in plans for spending. And there is no money in any of that so far articulated for black voter mobilization work. A little bit for black radio, a little bit for black digital, but zero for mobilization of black voters.
Cornell Belcher, you understand polls, you understand the numbers. You're one of the top Democratic pollsters. You worked on President Obama's campaign in 2008, 2012. If Democrats don't put money in black grassroots and gather vote efforts, they lose.
Well, it's not about it's not about the polls. It's about power, and it's about the economics of power. And you ask, are African Americans being taken for granted? Where in society are African Americans taken for granted? So why should it be any different here? I mean, the issue is you have a power structure in both political parties, quite frankly, where a few people control it, and you control the economics. You have the power, and it's about empowering people of color. It is getting to a point where if you are a Democrat and you look at where 46 or more % of your votes coming from people of color, but you're not empowering people of color within the party, long term that's not tenable. And at some point the Democratic Party is going to have to come face with that. And the progressive community, because it's not just the Democratic Party, but also the progressive community itself. When you look at these progressive organizations, roll and follow the money. Who has budgetary authority? What person of color, be either black or Hispanic, and either party can write a check and for one of these organizations. Few and far in between have that political power. Barack Obama put Patrick Gaspar at the DNC for a while, but then he became ambassador. But other than that, you got to go back to Ron Brown. When you had blacks in political power, and when President Obama leaves the White House and some of his people who have been powered leave the White House, it's few and far in between for people of color empowered within the progressive community or the Democratic Party.
Steve, on that particular point, at some point, you also got to say, how can you have a black president and you have a party that essentially is ignoring black people? And I'll say this here, I think part of this just because the strategy of President Obama has been he did not necessarily need this sophisticated black political infrastructure that was put in place after Reverend Jesse Jackson ran in 1988. I know for a fact, in talking to top Democrats, that has been decimated. We are now back actually at pre-1988 infrastructure when you talk about black political power. And so the president has to accept some responsibility here, and so he heads the party. Why hasn't the president made it clear to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the DSCC, DCCC, Democratic Governors Association, you are not going to keep ignoring black voters?
Yeah, no, it's a real question, and it's a real challenge that we face. And we used to joke during the Rainbow Coalition days that Jesse would get elected president, and then the movie would be about his white staffer. And that really, in some ways, is what has transpired, is that Obama was the president, but almost all of the people who have elevated to positions of prestige and responsibility and leadership and really check-rating capacity are white. I mean, I've begun to say this really is a close to an apartheid situation where almost half of the voters are people of color, but almost none of the people with real significant influence in positions of power are people of color.
And look, I know somebody's watching, and some black folks watching right now, and they're saying, Roland, you being too hard on the president. No. The president was elected, and I made it clear, at the most, he's only going to be there 8 years. There's something, and so what is left after 8 years? And the bottom line is, if you don't have an infrastructure, if you don't have black folks who are top strategists, if you don't have black folks who are in these PACs, if you don't have, and look, Cornell can't say it, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. This party has consistently thrown money at largely white pollsters. Cornell should be getting far more business. Black political consultants should be getting far more business. And again, it's political sharecropping, and that's what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's definitely that challenge that, we had done this report on the political spending a couple of years ago, looking on the Fannie Lou Hamer report, looking at the $500 million in contracts. 97% of the dollars was going to white contractors. So that's definitely a huge challenge that we faced. An additional, if not even deeper problem is this issue around which voters are most important. And they continue to still feel that the white swing voters, which is an increasingly small sector of the electorate, is the right grouping to go after, rather than looking at the millions of black folks who came out and the millions more who could vote but have not been organized and motivated.
Avis, we don't need a new entity to disperse money to black people.
No.
Today in Atlanta, there's a group of African Americans. I was invited to the meeting who are all black grassroots people to deal with this very issue. There are numerous organizations out there doing this. I know for a fact Reverend Jesse Jackson has been trying to reach out to people, and literally you have African Americans out there who are proven vote getters who are having to beg. And the reality is the Democratic Party is sitting here playing a game, constantly criticizing Republicans about lack of outreach and about bigotry and about ignoring black people. But the fact of the matter is, Avis, the Democratic Party right now is practicing income inequality.
Absolutely. I mean, you have organizations like the National Council on Black Civic Participation, all of these organizations that have for decades have honed systems to make sure that they get people out to vote. And the fact that they are out here now trying to get the slim leftovers after all of these millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, let's be very clear, they're given to white organizations who say they can go and get out the black vote. They don't have the credibility, they don't have the grassroots, they don't have the trust of the community. And then what happens when they have a result that they don't like? They turn around and they blame black voters for not coming out. They're not investing where they need to invest.
Right.
This is exactly why, when we look at the overall record of President Obama, when we do it from a very objective point of view, that we can see that was he the best choice in terms of really ushering that fundamental change that you want and that we expect. Black people, we have this conversation about, well, the president is just the president of the United States, not the president for black folks. That's unrealistic.
That's unrealistic. We have a black president in the Oval Office, and yet, I mean, on all levels, black folks are still leading last and getting the things that was really important.
Paris, with the final comment from Cornell. Paris.
There a lot of people say we don't have enough qualified black people on both sides of the aisle.
First of all, white folks don't ever use the word qualified when speaking of white folks. So I don't use it with black people.
Right, and I think that's the point that we have to fight against. It's like there are plenty of black people who are qualified, who can do the polling.
I don't even use qualified.
Well,
I don't assume you're going to hire somebody that's not qualified.
Right.
So if folks not going to use qualified in describing white folks, I'm not going to use qualified in describing black folks. Go ahead, finish your point.
The point is, there are plenty of black people who can do the work, who are ready to do the work and have proven track record of doing it, but we don't have that opportunity to get to the table. And the other thing is, your values are where your budget is, and that tells you a lot about.
Cornell, final comment.
Well, I will say this: the president has ushered in change on a lot of different avenues and plateaus. You can't lay this completely at him because it's been there for a long time.
All right.
Did he make progress? Yes. When he leaves office, will the bureaucracy and the progressive organizations that are doing this fall back into place that they historically have? Yes. We got to ask ourselves this: what demand are we making? Power concedes nothing without demand. Long term, this is not tenable for progressives in the Democratic Party. We're going to be locking minorities out of this. But what are our demands? How do we put political pressure on these progressive organizations and the Democratic Party to empower us?
Necessarily the demand, but it's just like you have a black man in office, you know, he should already be conscious that these things are not happening.
I would argue I would argue that he is conscious, but he can't do it all.
No, he can't do it all, but he can do more. Wasserman Schultz can do more. So let me go ahead and say this here. Bring the camera on me, please. David Wasserman Schultz, head of the DNC, I expect you to come on this show to explain your black plan, the grassroots plan, as well as your black media plan. The head of the Democratic Senators Election Committee, I expect you, the member of Congress, as well as executive director. The DCCC, I expect you to come on this show as well. The Democratic Governors Association, I expect you to come on this show as well. Let me also be clear to all of y'all progressive PACs and Emily's List, we calling every single one of y'all as well, and the question is going to be, what is your black plan? And if you don't have a black plan, I'm going to put your name out there. I'm going to put your face on TV. I'm going to put your phone number on TV. I'm going to put your email on TV. I'm going to put your website on TV, because what you are not going to do is continue to come to black people and ask for our votes and beg for us to save your behind on election day, and you don't want to spend the money. Let me be clear. I am not a slave. I have no chains, and I damn sure am not interested in being a political sharecropper. Cornell, thanks a bunch. Steve Phillips, thanks a bunch. Come back.
All right, so the bottom line is, your heart is where your treasure is. And in this particular case, it appears that the Democratic Party's not placing any treasure within the organizations that get out the black vote. So if they're not putting any treasure in there, then their heart's not in there. And if their heart's not in there, they do not need to be rewarded with the black vote merely because it's there. They cannot take it for granted. They need to put their money where their mouth is. They talk all of this stuff about empowerment and being for the black community, the various minority communities, but if they're not investing any money into those communities in order to help to build up those communities, in order to get out the vote, then don't expect that vote to get out. And when it doesn't come out, then don't turn around and blame the black voters for not coming out when you didn't try to effectively get them out. I'm going to add this little clip that Roland did at the end of his show regarding the Democratic Party and their lack of financial contributions in order to get out the black vote, contribute to the various organizations that deal with the black community.
Tomorrow's show, I need to spend a little bit more time discussing with Democrats and their inability to spend money. And let me be real clear, because a brother tweeted this to me. I demand the same thing of Republicans. I demand the same thing in terms of them stepping up and being sure they have outreach to black folks as well. I'm real clear you're not going to run out there and keep trying to talk to young white voters, talk to undecided middle-class voters, and you want to keep ignoring us. You are going to spend money on black media. I expect money spent on black television, black radio, black websites, black magazines, black newspapers. So excuse me if I'm going to ask for it, and I'm telling you right now, to every Democrat, I'm going to put you on blast. So my suggestion for you to come up with a plan so then you don't get put on blast, because in the words of Frank Lucas from the movie American Gangster, I'm going to get that money.
Like player.
I'm just letting y'all know.